Most people think blood sugar only matters during the day, when you're eating meals, drinking coffee, sneaking snacks between meetings. At night, while you're sleeping, your body should be stable. That's the assumption. But here's what nobody tells you. For millions of people over 50, their highest blood sugar readings of the entire day happen between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Not after breakfast, not after dinner, in the middle of the night, when they're doing absolutely nothing, and the worst part, they have no idea it's happening. No symptoms, no warnings, just silent damage accumulating hour after hour while they sleep. Research published in Diabetes Care tracked continuous glucose monitors on thousands of adults and found that nearly 40% of people with prediabetes experience their peak glucose levels during sleep, not meals. This isn't a quirk, it's a metabolic red flag. And by the time you feel it during the day, the nighttime damage has already been doing its work for months, sometimes years. We're going to walk through the 5 specific nighttime triggers that cause this. And number 4 is something you probably do every single night without thinking twice. But before we break down what's happening hour by hour, here's something worth knowing. If your goal is actually stabilizing blood sugar around the clock, not just avoiding spikes during meals, you need more than individual tips. There's a full metabolic protocol in the description that lays out the complete 24-hour cycle, specific meal timing windows, the exact supplements that support overnight glucose regulation, and daily routines built to work with your body's natural rhythms, not against them. It was developed specifically for people over 50 managing insulin resistance or prediabetes. The link is in the description below or pinned at the top of the comments. Now let's talk about why your blood sugar doesn't just shut off when you do. Your body at night isn't resting the way you think it is. While you're unconscious, your liver is still working, your muscles are still metabolizing, your brain is still burning fuel, and all of that requires glucose. So your body has a backup system. It manufactures its own. This process is called gluconeogenesis, and it happens primarily in your liver. When your blood sugar dips too low overnight, your liver releases stored glucose to keep things stable. That's normal. That's healthy. The problem starts when this system gets confused, when your liver releases too much glucose, or releases it at the wrong times, or can't stop releasing it even when your blood sugar is already high. Studies in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism show that people with insulin resistance experience what's called hepatic glucose overproduction. The liver dumps glucose into the bloodstream even when it's not needed, and because you're asleep, you can't counteract it with movement, with food, with anything. You're just lying there while your blood sugar climbs. This is why people wake up with fasting glucose readings in the 120s, 130s, even 140s, higher than anything they saw the day before. The mechanism is invisible, but the damage is real. It accelerates insulin resistance, it stresses your pancreas, it sets you up for worse glucose control during the day. And it all starts with 5 specific nighttime behaviors that throw this delicate system completely off balance. Here's the first one: eating carbohydrates too close to bedtime. And we're not just talking about dessert, a bowl of pasta at 8 p.m., a sandwich at 9, even a so-called healthy snack like fruit or whole grain crackers 2 hours before bed. When you eat carbs late, your blood sugar rises. That's expected. But what happens next is the problem. Your body releases insulin to bring that glucose back down. Under normal circumstances, insulin does its job and everything stabilizes. But if you're insulin resistant, and most people over 50 have some degree of resistance even if they don't know it, your cells don't respond to insulin the way they used to. So your pancreas has to release more, and even then, your blood sugar doesn't drop as fast as it should. By the time you fall asleep, your glucose is still elevated, your insulin is still high, and your liver gets mixed signals. It's supposed to release glucose overnight to keep you stable, but it's also getting the message that glucose is already high, so it hesitates, overcompensates, or releases glucose in erratic bursts. Research from the American Journal of Physiology found that late-night carbohydrate intake leads to prolonged insulin secretion that disrupts the liver's normal overnight glucose regulation. Translation: your liver doesn't know when to turn off. If you eat starchy or sugary foods within 3 hours of lying down, you're setting up a metabolic tug-of-war that plays out while you sleep, and you wake up with the evidence written across your glucose meter. Second, chronic stress that never gets processed before bed. Everyone talks about stress and blood sugar during the day. But nighttime stress, the kind that keeps your mind racing, your muscles tense, your nervous system on high alert, triggers a completely different hormonal cascade. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. These are fight-or-flight hormones. They exist to give you energy in dangerous situations, and one of the ways they do that is by signaling your liver to release glucose fast. That made sense when stress meant running from a predator. It doesn't make sense when stress means replaying an argument in your head at 11 p.m. But your body doesn't know the difference. If you go to bed with your stress response still activated, heart rate elevated, thoughts spinning, jaw clenched, your cortisol stays high. And high cortisol at night means your liver keeps dumping glucose into your bloodstream for hours. Studies published in Psychoneuroendocrinology show that people with elevated nighttime cortisol levels have significantly higher fasting glucose readings in the morning, even when their diets are identical to people with normal cortisol rhythms. This isn't about having a bad day. This is about unresolved physiological stress, any that carries over into sleep. If you're lying in bed thinking about tomorrow's problems, your body interprets that as a crisis, and it responds by flooding your system with fuel you don't need. The result: blood sugar that climbs steadily between midnight and dawn, entirely independent of food. Third, and this one catches almost everyone, drinking alcohol in the evening, even one glass of wine with dinner, even a single beer while watching TV. Alcohol does something strange to your liver. In the short term, it actually suppresses glucose release. Your liver gets busy metabolizing the alcohol, so it temporarily stops its normal job of regulating blood sugar. For the first few hours, your glucose might even drop slightly. People feel this as relaxation, as winding down. But here's the rebound. Once your liver finishes processing the alcohol, usually 3 to 5 hours later, it goes into overdrive. It releases a surge of stored glucose to compensate for the suppression, and that surge happens right in the middle of the night. Research in Diabetes and Metabolism Journal tracked continuous glucose monitors on adults who consumed moderate alcohol in the evening and found a consistent pattern. Glucose levels dropped slightly in the first 2 hours after drinking, then spiked sharply between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., often reaching levels 20 to 30 points higher than baseline. If you have a drink at 8 p.m., your liver is dumping glucose at 1 a.m. You're asleep, you have no idea. And because alcohol also disrupts sleep architecture, reducing REM sleep and increasing nighttime awakenings, your stress hormones rise at the same time. It's a double hit. Your liver is overproducing glucose, and your cortisol is amplifying the damage. Most people blame their morning fasting glucose on what they ate. They never connect it to the glass of wine they had 8 hours earlier. Fourth, sleeping in a room that's too warm. This one sounds harmless. It's not. Your body's core temperature naturally drops during sleep. This isn't just comfort, it's a metabolic signal. When your core temperature drops, it triggers a cascade of processes that support overnight repair, hormone regulation, and glucose metabolism. Studies in diabetes care found that people who sleep in environments above 70 degrees Fahrenheit have measurably worse glucose control overnight compared to those who sleep in cooler rooms around 66 to 68 degrees. The mechanism is twofold. First, heat stress, even mild heat stress that doesn't wake you up, activates your sympathetic nervous system. That means cortisol and adrenaline go up. Glucose follows. Second, warm environments disrupt deep sleep. You spend more time in light sleep stages and less time in slow-wave sleep, which is when your body does most of its metabolic repair work. Without enough deep sleep, your insulin sensitivity drops. Your cells become less responsive to insulin, and your liver compensates by releasing more glucose. If your bedroom feels cozy and warm when you fall asleep, your metabolism is struggling. Most people over 50 already have reduced thermoregulation. They don't cool down as efficiently as younger people. So sleeping in a warm room compounds the problem. You're lying there sweating slightly, tossing the blanket off, never reaching the deep restorative sleep your glucose control depends on. And your blood sugar climbs steadily all night long. Fifth, and this is the one most people never see coming, skipping dinner or eating too little at night. The logic seems sound. Don't eat late, keep your blood sugar low, wake up with good numbers. But here's what actually happens. If you go to bed in a fasted state, especially if you haven't eaten in 6, 7, 8 hours, your blood sugar does drop. Your liver senses this. And it does exactly what it's designed to do. It releases glucose to prevent hyperglycemia. But if you're insulin resistant, this release doesn't stop when it should. Your liver overcompensates. It floods your bloodstream with glucose, even though you're not actually in danger of going too low. Research in the Journal of Clinical Investigation found that people with metabolic dysfunction who fasted for extended periods before bed experienced what's called rebound hyperglycemia, which saw a sharp rise in blood sugar between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., caused entirely by excessive acute hepatic glucose output. This is why some people wake up with fasting glucose in the 130s, even though they didn't eat anything after 6 p.m. Their liver panicked. It thought they were starving, so it dumped stored glucose to protect them, and because they were asleep, that glucose just sat in their bloodstream, doing damage. The worst part, this creates a vicious cycle. High morning glucose makes you insulin resistant during the day. Insulin resistance makes your liver overproduce glucose at night, and the cycle repeats, getting worse each time. So what do you actually do about this? Start with your evening carbohydrate timing. If you're going to eat carbs, finish them at least 3 hours before bed. That gives your body time to process the glucose and bring insulin back down before you sleep. If you need a snack closer to bedtime, make it protein and fat, a handful of nuts, a small piece of cheese, a few bites of plain yogurt. These won't spike your glucose, and they'll give your liver a steady fuel source so it doesn't panic overnight. For stress, build a genuine wind-down routine. Not scrolling on your phone, not watching the news. Something that physically calms your nervous system. Deep breathing, light stretching, journaling for 5 minutes. The goal is to lower cortisol before you lie down. If your heart rate is still elevated, when you get into bed, your glucose will pay for it 6 hours later. With alcohol, the fix is simple. Stop drinking at least 4 hours before bed, or skip it entirely on nights when glucose control matters. If you do drink, pair it with food and water to slow absorption. And expect your morning numbers to be higher. Track the pattern, you'll see it. For room temperature, aim for 66 to 68 degrees. Use a fan. Crack a window, wear lighter clothes. Your body needs to cool down to sleep well and metabolize glucose properly. If you're warm, you're sabotaging both. And for food timing, don't go to bed starving. A small balanced meal 3 to 4 hours before sleep. Protein, healthy fat, fibre, minimal starch will stabilise your liver and prevent the rebound surge. Here's what we just covered. 1. Eating carbohydrates too close to bedtime confuses your liver and keeps insulin elevated for hours. 2. Unresolved stress before sleep floods your system with cortisol, signalling your liver to release glucose you don't need. 3. Alcohol suppresses glucose regulation temporarily, then triggers a massive rebound spike in the middle of the night. 4. Sleeping in a warm room disrupts deep sleep and activates stress hormones that raise blood sugar. 5. Skipping dinner or fasting too long before bed causes your liver to overproduce glucose in a panic response. These aren't small factors. They're not edge cases. For most people over 50, these 5 behaviours are the difference between waking up at 95 and waking up at 135. The difference between stable glucose and slow metabolic decline. Now that you see what's happening in your body at night, the next step is addressing it systematically, not just reacting to one spike at a time. There's a complete protocol in the description that walks through the full 24-hour metabolic cycle, exact meal timing strategies, which supplements support overnight glucose stability, and the daily routines that prevent rebound hyperglycemia long-term. It was built specifically for people over 50 dealing with insulin resistance or prediabetes. The link is in the description below or pinned at the top of the comments. Your blood sugar at night isn't invisible. You just haven't been looking at the right hours.